28 men were trapped in Antarctica with no ship, no rescue, and almost no hope. But somehow, every single one of them survived. Their leader was Ernest Shackleton, a British explorer. His plan was bold: cross Antarctica from one side to the other on foot. In August 1914, Shackleton's ship, the Endurance, left for the Antarctic. The men thought they were beginning a great exploration mission. But the farther south they sailed, the more dangerous the ocean became. Cold winds, heavy waves, and floating ice surrounded the ship. At first, life on board still felt controlled. The crew worked, cared for the dogs, checked supplies, and waited for their chance to reach land. Before entering the Weddell Sea, people in South Georgia warned them the ice was unusually bad that year, but turning back was not the plan. Soon, the Endurance entered pack ice. This was not normal snow. It was massive sea ice that could trap and crush a ship. Then the worst happened. In January 1915, the ship stopped moving. The ice had locked around it like a frozen prison. The crew hoped the ice would open again, but day after day, the Endurance stayed frozen in place, drifting helplessly with the ice. Winter arrived. The sun disappeared for weeks. Around them was darkness, freezing wind, and thousands of miles of empty Antarctic ice. The men tried cutting channels through the ice, hoping to free the ship, but the ice was too thick, too heavy, and too powerful. Then pressure ridges began rising around them. The ice was moving, pushing, and lifting huge frozen slabs like slow-motion waves. The Endurance was strong, but not strong enough. The ice squeezed the wooden hull until the ship began to bend and crack. Inside the ship, the men heard the sound no sailor wants to hear: timber cracking under pressure. Their safe home was breaking apart. Shackleton made the order: abandon ship. The men carried food, tents, tools, and lifeboats onto the ice before it was too late. Now they were no longer sailors. They were castaways living on floating sea ice, with no land nearby and no rescue coming. In November 1915, the Endurance finally sank beneath the ice. The expedition had failed, but the real survival story had just begun. They built a camp on the drifting ice. Every day, the frozen platform under their feet carried them slowly across the sea. Food became precious. Every meal had to be controlled carefully because no one knew how long they would be trapped. Shackleton wanted to reach land, so the men tried dragging heavy lifeboats across the ice. But the surface was broken and brutal. Even with sledges and dogs, progress was painfully slow. The ice was not flat land. It was moving, cracking, and changing every day. Shackleton understood one thing clearly: panic could kill them faster than the cold, so he kept routines, discipline, and hope alive. One crew member, Frank Hurley, documented the nightmare with his camera. Thanks to him, parts of this impossible story were preserved. Then the ice camp itself became dangerous. Cracks opened near the tents, and the men had to move quickly before the floe broke apart. In April 1916, the ice finally opened enough to launch the lifeboats. The men escaped the floe, but now they faced the freezing ocean. 28 men crowded into 3 small boats. Their goal was Elephant Island, a remote piece of land in the Southern Ocean. The journey was miserable. Freezing spray hit their faces and clothes, while waves threw the small boats through icy water. At night, they had almost no comfort. Just darkness, cold water, wet clothes, and the fear that one wave could end everything. Storms made the boats feel tiny. But after days of exhaustion, the men finally reached something solid: Elephant Island. When they saw land, it looked like salvation. But Elephant Island was not a safe home. It was remote, freezing, and almost never visited. Still, stepping onto land was a huge moment. For the first time in months, they were no longer sleeping on drifting ice. They built shelters from overturned lifeboats, canvas, and rocks. It was rough, but it protected them from the worst of the weather. But there was a serious problem. No one knew they were there. If they simply waited, they could die on that island. So Shackleton made a desperate decision. He would take 5 men and sail for South Georgia, over 800 miles away. Their boat was called the James Caird. It was only a lifeboat. So the men strengthened it with wood, canvas, and whatever they had. Then Shackleton left most of the crew behind under Frank Wild's command. 6 men sailed away, trying to bring back rescue. Their navigator was Frank Worsley. In storms and clouds, he had only brief moments to use the sun and calculate their position. The Southern Ocean is one of the roughest seas on Earth. The James Caird was tiny compared to the waves around it. For more than 2 weeks, the men were wet, cold, and exhausted. They had to bail water, hold the boat together, and keep moving. Then, against all odds, they saw South Georgia. They had crossed the ocean in a lifeboat and reached the island they needed. But they had landed on the wrong side. The whaling stations, where people could help them, were across mountains no one had crossed before. They rested only briefly. They were weak, soaked, and frozen, but staying there meant the men on Elephant Island would remain trapped. Shackleton, Worsley, and Tom Crean began the mountain crossing. They had no proper map, no modern climbing gear, and almost no energy. For 36 hours they climbed across snow, ice, and dangerous ridges. If they chose the wrong route, they could vanish forever. Then they heard something unbelievable, a sound from the whaling station. After months of silence and ice, human help was finally near. When they reached Stromness, the workers were shocked. 3 filthy, exhausted men had crossed mountains from the impossible side of the island. Shackleton did not rest for long. His men were still waiting on Elephant Island, and he immediately began planning a rescue. But the rescue was not easy. Several attempts failed because sea ice blocked the ships before they could reach the stranded crew. Meanwhile, the men on Elephant Island kept waiting. They repaired clothes, rationed food, and watched the horizon every single day. Frank Wild helped keep them ready. Each morning, he reportedly told the men to prepare, because the boss might come today. Finally, on August 30th, 1916, a Chilean vessel called the Yelcho reached Elephant Island with Shackleton on board. When the men saw the ship, they knew the nightmare was ending. After everything they had survived, rescue had actually come. One by one, the survivors were taken from the shore. Shackleton counted them carefully because he had promised to save them all. And this is what makes the story legendary. The ship was destroyed, the expedition failed, but all 28 men survived. Shackleton never crossed Antarctica on that mission. But he achieved something even harder. He brought every man home alive.